During this war in Ukraine, the President Volodymyr Zelensky, gave a press conference, and he said this.
We don't have nuclear arms, we don't have oil and gas to fill the world with, but we have our people, we have our land, and for us, that is our gold. That's what we're fighting for.
Now, I couldn't help noticing an interesting thing about this. Everybody who hears this clip and hears what he said is moved by it, is deeply moved, and our respect for him goes up, our respect for the Ukrainian people goes up. He's making Putin look bad. I mean, if nothing else, I don't know how long they can hold out, and I don't know how well they can become insurgents, but he's making Putin, this is a moral loss for Putin, and that does count for something. I'm not going to, just minimize that. That's an important thing. But that's patriotism. We have our people, we have our country, and that's what we're fighting for. We may not have oil, we may not have riches, we may not have all of these things, but we have our people and we have our country, and that's patriotism, and it makes us sit up and it makes us take notice, and we have this natural respect for it. And yet, we are not supposed to have it. Americans are not supposed to have it. We don't even really know what it is. I remember after 9/11, people were saying, "Oh, everybody's wearing these, American flag pins." And Katie Couric, I remember, complained about this is a quote, the whole culture of wearing flags on our lapel and saying "we" when referring to the United States. Patriotism is not something that intellectuals like. Intellectuals tend not to like anything that that dignifies the common people, that elevates the common people. A patriot, an ordinary guy who's a patriot who goes to battle to fight for his country is elevated. An ordinary person is elevated in wisdom when he believes in Jesus Christ. I see this all the time. I talk to people who are just simple people who just do simple things, but you talk to them, but they believe in Christ, and suddenly they have great wisdom, and that anybody who is, no matter how sophisticated, can learn from. Intellectuals don't like that. They're proud of their brains and they want to make sure that they have them. So they are not really big on patriotism. And that's how you get ignoramus like AOC and the rest of the left telling us there's no problem with endless immigration of any kind of people coming in, and you're racist if you think there is. All I say is, look, I love living in a multi-ethnic country. I got to tell you, I do. I love living in a country with people of different colors. I think it's one of the achievements of America. But it is an achievement not based on their color. It doesn't come from diversity. Diversity is a byproduct of sameness. It's a byproduct of all of us believing in the same values, the values that define us as Americans, which are the values of limited government, responsible to the people, and the people ruling, and individual people being free. That's how we became a multi-ethnic country, because people were proud to come to America. And when the left attacks patriotism, that line from the Princess Bride, they use that word, but I don't think they know what it actually means. I got the new copy of the Claremont Review, one of the very few journals I subscribe to. It's one of my favorite, and it has an essay by the editor, Charles Kessler, just a brilliant man. He's been on the show, bright guy and a good guy, and he reminded me of Reagan's farewell address. And Reagan talked about, in his farewell address, the end of his presidency, he talked about the resurgence in patriotism that had come along during his presidency. And here's what he said.
Those of us who are over 35 or so years of age grew up in a different America. We were taught very directly what it means to be an American. And we absorbed almost in the air a love of country and an appreciation of its institutions. If you didn't get these things from your family, you got them from the neighborhood, from the father down the street who fought in Korea, or the family who lost someone at Anzio. Or you could get a sense of patriotism from school. And if all else failed, you could get a sense of patriotism from the popular culture. The movies celebrated democratic values and implicitly reinforced the idea that America was special. TV was like that too, through the mid-60s. But now we're about to enter the 90s, and some things have changed. Younger parents aren't sure that an unambivalent appreciation of America is the right thing to teach modern children. And as for those who create the popular culture, well-grounded patriotism is no longer the style.
So Reagan was talking about the culture all that time ago, And this is what I started talking about when I came back from England and I saw the change and I saw what had gone on. And after 9/11, I've told this story a million times, but still David Letterman came on and said, why do these people hate us? And I remember shouting at the television set saying, who cares why they hate us? They hate us because they have an evil, wicked philosophy and we are free people. They hate us for being the good things that we are. Plenty of people hate you for being right. Plenty of people hate you for doing what's right. I mean, that's how you get things like the crucifixion. That's how you get that, is the world is not really a place that naturally accepts truth, that naturally accepts freedom. So he was talking about the culture and he was talking about patriotic movies. I remember talking to Ben about this once. Patriotic movies were not what you think they were. They were not, during the World War II especially, there were patriotic movies with, Jimmy Cagney waving the flag. It's a grand old flag playing George M. Cohan. And there were, Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney and singing America songs. But that was during wartime. It was propaganda. It was open propaganda. It was to cheer people up. Their husbands and brothers and sons were away at war. We were fighting a worldwide conflict against a very evil enemy. It was to cheer people. It was cheerleading. But that's not what most of the movies have been. Art is culture critical. This is one of the reasons that conservatives are so bad at it. We don't criticize the leftist culture. We don't come out and say, you know what, maybe we should have some virtue, because the minute we do it, we get attacked and we're not hip anymore and people don't want to do it. But when you go back and look, art was always culture critical. Even the golden age of the movies, the art was culture critical. It talked about things that go wrong in a country. So I just go back, 1933, it's the Depression. Busby Berkeley, there's a musical, the Gold Diggers of 1933. Busby Berkeley was the master of the great big dance number. But this is the song Forgotten Man, in which, is it Joan Blondell? I think it is Joan Blondell. Sings this famous song where she goes up to a guy because he's living on the street and he's poor and he's broke, and she gives him a cigarette, and then she says this, because this is after World War I, right?
I don't know if he deserves a bit of sympathy. Forget your sympathy. That's all right with me. I was satisfied to drift along from day to day till they came and took my man away. Remember my forgotten man? You put a rifle in his hand. You sent him far away. You shouted, hip hooray! But look at him today.
So, they were saying, we got to take care of these guys who are out in the street. We got to do something about them. After the war, after we found out about the Holocaust, there were movie after movie after movie exploring American racism. We looked at Hitlerian racism and started to examine ourselves. As Gentleman's Agreement, Crossfire, these things came out during the war. The Boy with the Green Hair, Showboat, about anti-black racism, Imitation of Life. A lot of movies started out about anti-black racism as well. I remember as a kid watching a film called Broken Arrow, where Jimmy Stewart, one of the most conservative people in Hollywood. I mean, they talk about John Wayne, but Jimmy Stewart was a rock-ribbed conservative. He was in a film about the Indians. He plays a scout. He falls in love with an Apache woman, and the film acknowledges that the Apache committed savagery. It acknowledges that, but it also points out that the Europeans, the whites, whatever you want to call them, they were also committing savagery. Here's a scene where they ask Jimmy Stewart if he will serve as a scout for the army, and he says no, and a guy challenges him, whose side are you on?
I'm not looking for trouble, but if you don't fight against them, you're with them, and I've got a right to say that.
Who says so? What's your name?
Ben Slade. I own a ranch only a mile out from Fort Grant. Even so, the Apaches burned my house last month. My wife was inside. They almost got my boy, too. Seems to me a white man like you would want to see that sort of thing stopped.
That's right, anybody would.
Then why don't you join the colonel's staff?
That's private business, Slade.
War ain't private business, not when they're murdering our women and kids.
At Big Creek, we murdered Indian women and kids.
Cochise started this, and any
Hold
man...
now, just let's get the facts straight here. Cochise didn't start this war. A snooty little lieutenant fresh out of the East started. He flew a flag of truce, which Cochise honored, and then he hanged Cochise's brother and 5 others under the flag.
Oh, you hear all sorts of stories.
You want to know why I didn't kill that Apache boy? Well, for the same reason I wouldn't kill your boy or scout for the Army. I'm sick and tired of all this killing. Besides, who asked us out here in the first place?
Who asked us out here in the first place? I mean, this is nuanced stuff, and it always was. There was examining ourselves, examining our flaws, examining our history in the light of what we had just seen in the death camps, which we had nothing to do with, right? We didn't create the death camps. We destroyed the death camps, or helped, we and the Russians destroyed the death camps. But we thought, well, that's an evil that we've now seen. Do we have this in our own hearts? And we started to examine ourselves about it. And like I said, Jimmy Stewart, one of the most conservative guys out there in Hollywood, a true patriot, a guy who was an absolute hero in World War II. He was an airman, and he was one of the genuine Hollywood heroes in World War II. Making that movie, examining the things that we've done wrong, but with nuance, saying, the Indians are committing atrocities, we're committing atrocities, we have to find a way to work this out. And he's in love with this Indian woman, so he's basically the bridge between them. It's only when the culture as a whole, the elite culture as a whole, starts to attack patriotism, starts to attack love of country, that people start to make more jingoistic movies. That's where you get John Wayne striking back against what he felt was this cultural trend, and he was right. He made this film called The Alamo. Now, The Alamo came out in 1960. Wayne had been trying to get it made for years. It was a love project for him. It was corny in 1960. I saw it when it came out. It was corny in 1960 when it came out. And one of the things that always cracked me up was when I went to visit the Alamo, there's an actual mural inside of John Wayne, not of Davy Crockett. It's classic Americana, right? We don't put up a monument to Davy Crockett. We put it up to John Wayne playing Davy Crockett. But Wayne makes a famous speech in this about what it means to be a republic. He wants there to be a republic of Texas. And he makes a speech as he plays Davy Crockett. He's talking to Colonel Travis, and this is what he says.
Republic. I like the sound of the word. Means people can live free, talk free, go or come, buy or sell, be drunk or sober, however they choose. Some words give you a feeling. Republic is one of those words that makes me tight in the throat. Same tightness a man gets when his baby takes his first step, or his first baby shaves and makes his first sound like a man. Some words can give you a feeling that make your heart warm. Republic is one of those words.
So 15 years later, Robert Redford makes a great thriller called 3 Days of the Condor. I think it's Sidney Pollack directed it. And he plays a CIA spy who's being hunted, and it turns out America is involved in some really bad stuff. And he meets an assassin who's been following him. Max von Sydow plays him. And Redford says, I'm going to go back to New York. And Max von Sydow says, the Americans will kill you. Your own people will kill you if you go back. And Redford says, well, what do I do? And they have this really tremendous exchange.
You seem to understand it all so well. What would you suggest?
Personally, I prefer Europe.
Europe?
Yes. Well, the fact is, what I do is not a bad occupation. Someone is always willing to pay.
I would find it tiring.
Oh no, it's quite restful. It's almost peaceful. No need to believe in either side or any side. There is no cause. There's only yourself. The belief is in your own precision.
I was born in the United States, Joe. I miss it when I'm away too long.
A pity.
I don't think so.
Great scene, a great scene. This is an assassin basically saying what John Lennon said, no beliefs, no religion, no possession, just my own efficiency. And he's a killer. And Redford says, I was born here. I miss it when I'm gone. And when the assassin says that's a pity, Redford's character says, I don't think so. And what he's saying is it is natural to love your country, but you love your country for reasons, right? And when we examine our flaws, see, this is what the left misunderstands. When we examine our flaws, it's not to destroy our country, it's to make our country into what it's supposed to be. We do it out of love in the same way we examine our own flaws. But to strike out against that natural feeling of belonging, of love for your country, is to strike out at something noble and good and central to the human character, and it is destructive. And I just want to end with this famous poem by Sir Walter Scott, just a little bit of it. He says, "Breathes there a man with soul so dead, who never to himself hath said, 'This is my own, my native land,' whose heart hath never within him burned his home, his footsteps he hath turned from wandering on a foreign strand. If such there breathe, go mark him well. For him no minstrel raptures swell." Nobody's going to write songs about him. "High though his titles, proud his name, boundless his wealth, as wish can claim, despite those titles, power and pelf," which is filthy wealth, "the wretch, concentred all in self, living shall forfeit fair renown, and doubly dying shall go down to the vile dust from whence he sprung, unwept, unhonored, and unsung." Our spirit speaks to us. It speaks to us of love of country. It speaks to us of love of God. It speaks to us of our responsibilities and the things that we have to do to become men instead of beasts. And one of them is love our country for the good thing it is and preserve our country for the good thing it is, even as we examine ourselves. The left has lost that plot. It has lost that story, but we have to bring it back. Like and subscribe for more great Klavan-y content, and also subscribe to the Andrew Klavan podcast wherever you listen to podcasts.